We certainly look at every day that we have here as being ready to expect the unexpected.
It's a pretty unique situation, meeting someone probably on the worst day of their life.
Accidents happen, people make mistakes, we're not perfect. And when that does happen, we rely on the help of others to get us out of trouble.
You're going to work sort of going, well, okay, what's the weather like for the day? Which way is the wind blowing? Is the southerly coming through? What's the worst time of the day?
We've got routines, daily briefs and aircraft checks, but all of a sudden the bat phone, as we affectionately call it, can ring, and then
the boat went from a 45 to vertical and sunk within a split second. And Rick looked at me and said, "What happened?" I said, "It sunk." He was in shock. He's obviously in shock. The lure we were towing came past and it hooked on another lure that had got stuck on his jacket, his spray jacket. So he got dragged under the water, pulled his spray jacket off his body, came back up in a panic, and then the lure dug into his knee and dragged him back under the water again.
The bat phone had gone off and we'd received a call that only there was a 000 call.
So we prepared ourselves for more than one person in the water, but we didn't know whether we were coming to 30 people in the water or 2 or 1.
And I just kept telling the boys and Rick, "Don't worry, everything's all right. We've got the EPIRB, we're going to be right. Westpac Lifesaver will come." I knew who would be coming.
The first thing we looked for was craft to give us any indication that they'd either seen a vessel go down or they were in fact themselves in distress, and there was none of that.
You could see the land, but it felt like thousands of miles away.
Things were starting to look very bad. You could tell the boys were slipping into a bit of shock.
I was feeling weak and I didn't know, if it didn't come, I didn't know. Them things were sort of going through my mind, like whether I'm going to see the family again.
The worst fear for that hour that we were in the water was that we were going to lose the boys.
we had maps out, we had computer programs running and everything to try and figure out where might they be.
When we first found them, what we saw was 2 life jackets. That's all we spotted, because it was a grey esky and almost a grey water, and everyone was wearing dark clothes.
And there was 2 or 3 choppers all in a row. There was film crew and the Westpac rescue. It was the best feeling.
We're saved. I'm gonna see my son again.
And I deemed that the safest thing to do was to actually not winch, but wait for the water police.
We decided at that stage, get a life raft to them, get them out of the water.
Once we got in that raft, I gave me Ryan a cuddle, and yeah, it was the best feeling. If Westpac Lifesaver rescue didn't exist, I don't know whether I'd be here today, because I was not in a good way.
I kept telling them, don't worry, they'll come, and sure enough they did.
You're just coming down from a job and then the phone goes off again, and you 1 minute you're 15 miles off Bondi and the next minute you're up in Katoomba.
We are ready for anything because the skeleton of our training does allow us to adapt to most any situations.
That professionalism stems from all staff down to the operational crew. It's critical in this job when it's all about saving lives.
And we're working with people, our patients, yes, very glad to see us, but they're panicking, they're scared, they don't know if they're going to survive this ordeal.
As I'd woken up that morning, definitely that I was going home today, and I'd had a pretty smooth but difficult time up until that point, mentally and physically, and I decided that I was going to head for home, which is a longer walk than I'd normally do in a day, but I thought I could do it.
At the start of each day we sort of go through our daily routine, have our brief, but you never know when something's going to happen. When
things started to not go according to plan, I was well and truly off track, far from any track at this point, out of water. The actual time of the moment of activating the EPIRB was a big decision for me.
The call came through around 12:30, so it gave us a few hours to play with, although it was extremely remote and rugged, and actually finding the signal proved quite difficult.
When I did actually first hear the sound of the chopper, approaching, it was a mixture of relief, obviously hoping help was nearby.
And finally we saw Pete's heliograph, the shining light towards us, which we were able to spot him between the trees.
I was on a slope here, there was a sheer face here and there's high trees here, so they really had a really small window where they were able to lower Harry, who was rescuing at the time, down without getting the chopper too close to the mountain face.
Just relying on my weight, just pushing me through the trees.
That was hairy, what he had to do to try and hold the chopper steady. It was quite windy, so close to the proximity of the cliff face, and to get him down between the trees.
When I did find him, he seemed relieved that we were there.
What Harry, who got winched down to me, had to face from his point of view, and the fact that he just still went through and did it anyway, speaks volumes about, just the courage that they use in their line of work.
There's absolutely no doubt that our biggest challenge is the financial one, to keep this place going.
People sometimes don't understand that. Why are you going that extra? Why does it cost you that much when you could do it for a little bit cheaper? It's because it's all down to safety and professionalism.
They think that we're financially secure, and explaining to them that, first of all, no, Westpac don't own us. Yes, we do need your support. We have a portion of government funding, approximately 50% of the shortfall that we've got to go out and get.
Aviation is an expensive beast, but it is probably one of the most efficient and effective forms of search and rescue going around. You can always question the reason as to why we spend money on search and rescue, but the proof's in the pudding. We save lives.
Sea started getting a bit swelly, and I thought, I think we should be going in now. We was out for an hour, and the son said, it'll be okay. I said, no, I think we better go in. It's looking, the waves are getting a little bit rolling. And we started back, and then also I think we got too close to the rocks where the water was swirling around a bit. And next thing I knew, we were sort of going round and round, and then the boat was over and I was under the water. I had the life jacket on, I came up and I noticed my son had swum and got to some high rocks, and he's screaming at me to swim towards him, which the waves were too harsh, I couldn't get there.
We intercepted a radio rescue call from Bateman's Bay Portable, who were the surf club there.
It's possible that they couldn't see him from the beach, given the surf conditions around where he was.
Finally got lucky and got my legs wrapped around the rocks, but the waves were still belting.
And would have been about 5 minutes from the time we intercepted that radio call to the time we were overhead the patient. Our assessment on site, looking at what he was doing on the rocks and how much he was struggling, was that essentially he didn't have that much longer to survive.
I thought I was gone. Even though I had a life jacket on, I thought this is it. I was swallowing lots and lots of water as the waves were hitting.
At that point, Joe was ready. We brought the helicopter straight in, and we were able to put Harry directly beside Peter in the water.
The rowers were sort of pushing me about as well, so I couldn't look. I just held down and had my head down, holding on to the rocks. Next thing I felt grateful feeling of a guy grabbing me. Yeah, I just remember I was just feeling grateful to have this guy wrapped around me and was pulling me up. I was a pretty heavy guy. I'm thinking, they've got to get me in, and they finally got me on the deck. And I was that grateful.
And when we brought him on board, he seemed in a semi-conscious state. And I quite quickly radioed for ambulance assistance.
I mean, I've always taken it, seeing them on televisions blow and say, another rescue. Good luck to those guys, and not thinking that I'd be one of those guys.
The coastal environment's very unforgiving. Without us, it's highly likely that Peter would have drowned.
To make sure that they do come home is obviously we have to make sure that they're well trained, that we have the best possible people on board the aircraft, highly skilled pilots and crew, that the aircraft is working at its best.
Without us here, there's nobody else to effect rescue within the time that's required. People will die.
You may not need us, but someone you know and love may need us one day.
It is just another day at the office for us, every rescue.
But if you can make that small part of that day a little easier to get through and try and help in some small way to get people back to their family, at the end of the day, then we've achieved our objective.